everyone. Welcome to another amazing episode of Inspired Action, where we dive into the most pressing leadership challenges and hope to inspire you to take a more coach-centered and people-focused approach to leadership. I'm your host, Kyle Pertuis, and it's time to get started with our three amazing guests today. Welcome to another episode of Inspired Action. I'm your host, Kyle Pertuis, and I'm here with three amazing guests today to answer this question. How can leaders encourage a culture of learning and curiosity? So first of all, a quick intro to the three amazing ladies that we have as guests today. First of all, we'll start with MARCIE LIEBERMAN, a long background in the luxury hospitality space with vast experience ranging from managing director to entrepreneur, is currently the co-founder of Kyanite Company. I hope I said that right. A dynamic consultancy bringing brand culture to life, listen to this, by aligning an organization's actions, behaviors, and operational outcomes with core values. Amazing work, MARCIE. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Secondly, CRUZ. Dawn has over 25 years of experience in human resources, most recently with talent practices and leadership coaching. She's got multiple certifications, including being a coach, various human resource disciplines, diversity and inclusion, leadership development, and has worked for Fortune 50 companies and been a consultant providing leadership development, talent management strategies for some time. So Dawn, welcome to you as well. And last but not least, Wendy IRWIN, owner of, you're probably gonna have to help say this word, but owner of WENDY IRWIN Coaching and
Perspicacity.
That's exactly right. Perspicacity. You'll have to explain that to us later. Whose careers ranged from starting out as an opera singer to a handbag designer to a mentor for creatives. And it wasn't until she became a coach and a trainer that she really feels like she found her true calling. Now she's helping adventurous and successful entrepreneurs redefine their legacy. Listen to this. Her mission: dare you to unmute yourself, to believe in the power of your voice, to change your life, your work, and your world. Isn't that awesome? Can't wait to hear from each of you. Wendy, so glad to have you as well. All right, ladies. So, Dawn, we're going to start with you, but just as a reminder, how can leaders encourage a culture of learning and curiosity? Take it away.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great topic. It's a great conversation to have. You could probably think about this from a couple of different perspectives, but I think first and foremost, creating an environment where people can share their learnings, their experiences, their things that they have exposure to, right? Because the more that you can share, the more interest that you can spread of learning, different skills, different areas of interest. I do think that being intentional with allowing individuals to maybe lead bodies of work that aren't part of maybe their normal day-to-day activities, it really does allow someone that opportunity to, stretch, right? Stretch their skills, stretch what they're doing, and bring those insights back to their current team. And from an employee's perspective, I really think it's important that employees own their development and own what it is that they want to do within their career. And again, being intentional with what do I want to do? How soon do I want to do it? And what path do I think that I need to take to do that? And then ask your manager, for some coaching guidance on starting to pave out what that journey might look like. But then also, having courage to reach out to peers, to other mentors, and asking for advice, asking for ways to gain different exposures and experiences, whether it's just meeting new people. But I do think that managers that create that space for, individuals to bring their authentic self, to work, share, their the goodness and greatness that they bring to their job, to their team environment. I think when managers allow for that, you just get much more richness, from employees, and then there is that desire to continue to learn.
Yeah, I love the point about that intentionality both ways, being intentional with letting people take on items that aren't necessarily within their responsibility set to test them and to grow them. But the other side, the other piece of that, I think that is so important when we live in a world of professional development plans, and here's your career path, and we're going to lay it all out for you.
Yeah.
But the individual taking ownership of, oh, wait a minute, here's my interests, here's where I want to grow, here's what I want to learn, here's something that I have no idea about that might be fun just to kind of to tap into. So I love the intentionality piece of that. Thank you so much, Dawn. Marcie, we are going to jump over to you. What would you add to that question? How can leaders encourage a culture of learning and curiosity?
Yeah, great. I mean, I second what Dawn said. Excellent topic. And I have to say before I jump in, Kyle, I didn't realize how much I loved this topic until I got your email. Like it refreshed so much in my mind. And that probably sounds terrible that it's not in the forefront of my mind, but I think it's a great topic. And, I think one of the most powerful things leaders can do is to create that environment where learning isn't just encouraged, it's expected and celebrated and woven into like a daily operations culture. And a culture where it starts with learning is curiosity, right? Curiosity is contagious. So it's fueling our innovation, our collaboration. And for me, I don't know, when I first got the question, I looked at it maybe in a little different spin. Because before we encourage the culture shift, it's important to share the why. Why is a culture of learning and curiosity beneficial to our team or to any team? And kind of reframing that and sharing with individuals why we do something helps everyone to understand that impact and actually personalizes the outcome, right? It's like that WIFM effect. I think in today's world, organizations can't rely anymore on the mentality or mindset of what's always worked for us or because we've always done it that way. And a culture of learning and curiosity keeps individuals and the business actually agile and resilient and full of potential. And I think one of the things that really stuck with me when I thought about the topic was when learning and curiosity is heightened, confidence is built, right? Because we're learning. People don't wait to be told what to do. We show up with bold questions and explore possibilities. And I think that kind of culture creates momentum. It empowers people to move beyond their job, right? Beyond their job description, and can truly recognize and realize their contribution. I mean, it sounds a little maybe too lofty, but at the end of the day, like, what's the human element? What's the human truth, right? And we as people want to matter. And I think that a learning culture tells people they matter. Their growth is important to the people around them, to the company, and gives that space to evolve and feel safe, maybe, and not having all of the answers. And that psychological safety is, I think, the secret sauce of high performing and high trust environments.
Yeah, no question. And two things. I mean, I love all of it, but the two things that stood out were what you said at the very beginning about the culture has an expectation that exists. So the expectation, and then you talked about questioning, and what an incredibly important piece of remaining curious, right? And as coaches, you know that, but being curious, encouraging those types of questions to flow and creating that culture where that's expected, right? There's no dumb answer or dumb question. Just ask. Love it. Wendy, again, last but not least, what can leaders encourage more of in the culture of learning and curiosity?
Yeah, well, and I love what both Dawn and Marcie said when Dawn was talking about creating space, and Marcie was talking more about like the creating expectation of, we want you to learn, we want you to be curious. But as listening to this, it just made me more sure for myself that it's really about trust. It's about trust in yourself as a leader, trust in your company and the mission, trust in your employees that they've got that they're capable, right? And I think that when you instill trust in your employees or people who are working for you, self-confidence, right, increases. The curiosity absolutely is going to come, because I think humans are naturally curious and they naturally want to learn and grow. And it's only this lack of self-trust or lack of trust of other people that creates this unwillingness to take a chance or get out of the comfort zone. And I know Marcie mentioned something about a lofty goal. Lofty schmofty. I mean, let's do this. The more people who can create their own self-trust and self-confidence and know that they're leading and aligned with the values of a company and a business, then they're only going to bring in more curiosity and learning from other people, because they're like, I want a part of this. I want to be in on it. And I think that builds that motivation and the growth and the expansion that so many people want in a working environment, but maybe don't know how to instill or inspire, because maybe they don't have that trust in themselves as well. So that's my 2 cents about that.
I love it. Yeah. And I mean, so much of that is really about, and it's reciprocal, right? If we can create that trust and create that buy-in, people are more likely to be curious and engaged in being more open to learning and trying things and taking risk and all of that, and vice versa. If you do those things naturally and it's not condemned or you're not shut down, you're going to create more trust and more of an open environment of collaboration. All right. So how do you reward growth, not just achievement, right? So maybe somebody's saying, okay, I'll be curious, I'm willing to learn that, but maybe they're not catching on super quick, so that they're learning, but they're growing and they're stepping into that new role as a first-time manager or whatever it might be. Not that they've mastered it. So how do you reward that? What would you say? We'll go in reverse order this time. Wendy, what do you think?
Oh, wow. Wasn't expecting that. So I think it's the same answer. I think that if somebody puts in the time and the effort to grow, the more you trust them, the more they're going to do that. And that in its own way is its own reward. But then maybe it looks a little bit like more responsibility or more personal investment in how it moves, like how it works, what's the process, what are the policies? Because when you have that, I think that is its own reward. Because if you really look at it, most people aren't saying, okay, I'm at this job because I'm making X amount of dollars every 2 weeks or whatever. It's usually like, I'm fulfilled, I get a say, I have, things I love to do. So that's, to me, I think it's just more trust. Can I double down on trust?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
Yeah, it kind of becomes built in, right? I like it. Don, what would you add? I know that's not exactly reverse order, but it is on my screen.
So what I will say is I was actually having a very similar conversation to this one yesterday with a group of leaders. And the growth piece came around helping people understand that you can take a lateral move, you can pick up an assignment in a different area, and allow those opportunities to help you grow skill set or gain exposures to other leaders. There's in the corporate setting, you'll see a lot of, I want to move up. Well, what does that mean? You might need to move sideways a couple of times before you can really move up, right? And helping people understand what that looks like and that it's okay to take those steps to the side, because it's all in preparation, right? And it's all in, you need one more skill, or, you need to, really hone in on how you communicate, your executive presence, things like that, and allowing people those opportunities to be in those positions, right? It just, their toolkit keeps getting bigger, and, their opportunities to practice, to learn, be able to showcase their skill set, right? It's greater. So
yeah,
kind of going back, to the conversation I was having with some of these leaders is, what is that thing that you're going to allow the employee to do? Or are we okay to start swapping people around into different roles?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And again, the intentionality is there with it, right? Even just with the question that you're asking, that puts the seed in their mind to say, oh, I need to be more intentional about this so I can make a conscious choice. Perfect. Marcie, what would you piggyback on that?
Can I double down on
double down.
And
that's like quadrupling
Dawn's
down.
Broad-based succession. I'm going to double down on all of that. But I also think one of the benefits of learning and curiosity is the personalization and the stronger engagement that comes with that. And people start to thrive in that. So looking at the benefit is really, you know, people are seen and heard and rewarding that. I think the more you have that trust, you're aware of their path. You know, I come from an industry where there's no one set path, say, to becoming a managing director or a corporate director of operations or any position that you might be talking about. And so it's really, as John said, it's maybe taking a sidestep, or, you know, even from a title, people would think stepping back, but truly your learning exposure and your development and your knowledge base and becoming that master in something is incredibly expanded. I don't know if that's answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely. And the irony that you doubled down on somebody already doubling down, and the fact that you live in Las Vegas just kind of fits right right in there. You guys all kind of alluded to this, but I'm going to throw in because I just read something just by happenstance yesterday. Actually, wasn't even looking at it from this perspective, but I think sharing that personal learning, and I'm reminded of this in so many of the leadership experiences that we do, how much growth happens when people can share their own experiences, namely those lessons that come from failures and successes, but largely, you know, I did it this way for a long time and this is what I learned. And then really, how are they modeling that continuous growth? And what I was reading was something along the lines of an interview with various players years ago, basketball players like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, the greatest of the great. And the question was, you know, what do you attribute your growth in the game and getting better? Almost every single one of them mentioned failure in their answer, right? And so it's just going back to Marcie, what you said about the expectation around curiosity and learning. I think there's an expectation that part of growth and part of being curious and part of learning is not being able to do it. And so you stick with it. All those other skills that we don't always recognize show up as we follow that path, even if it means lateral moves for a little while, right, Don? Like you were talking. So, man, I could talk to you guys for another couple of hours, but I've got to call time. Thank you again so much. Be sure to check us out every Thursday on LinkedIn and the upload on YouTube as well. Thanks again for joining us on Inspired Action. Bye, everybody.